So with me today, I have Henry Norton, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting in Thailand last year. And when we met Henry, you were talking to me about the modality that you were learning and practicing called holographic neurocoding.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until last week where I actually had the chance to have a session with you and experience what it was like. And it blew me away, really. So I really want to share that with everyone. But before we get into that, I realized the other day that you're actually 31, and I thought, oh my God, that's amazing because you don't come across as that youthful in terms of your energy. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people who work in the healing space, they are very youthful looking because of the work they do. But 31, wow, that's amazing. I want to hear about your journey. How did you get to where you are today? You're quite a wise soul, where you're at now at that age. I'm still working through a lot of my stuff, and you're helping others work through their stuff. So I'd love to hear about your journey.
Cool. 30, nearly 31. I'll be 31 in July. I'm holding on to that as long as possible. Look, I guess for as a child, I've always been quite intuitive and just naturally drawn to things like crystals. And I can remember being 7, 8 years old, spending all my money on those kind of things. And I grew up overseas. I grew up in the Middle East. So I was exposed to many different cultures. And I remember my grade 2 class had 17 different nationalities. And I was always exposed to such a global kind of community. My father's English and his family's all over that side. My mum's Australian. And so we lived in the Middle East so we could kind of travel. And I got to do a lot of that as a little kid. And it really just made me super grateful to be Australian and to realize, how lucky we are to have this place as home. I moved back when I was 15 with my family and I finished school here. All I ever wanted to do was be a PT to help people with training and nutrition. And that really, for me, was the backbone of kind of my identity for such a long time, was about training and nutrition. And when you're doing that and working with people, you very quickly kind of get to see through the stories and the noise. And there's so many more layers as to what's kind of going on in the space. Anyway, I
Mm.
did that for a while. I got tired of that and I wanted to go and do the military thing. I went down the Air Force route. I wanted to be a pilot. I just thought it would be a really cool job. Turns out that wasn't for me. I still wanted to do the military thing, and so I went back and applied for direct entry to commandos with the Australian Army, and got in and went and did that for 12 months. And that was really just to give back. Two, I really had this strong belief that I wanted to help and serve people that couldn't necessarily help and serve themselves. Having grown up in the Middle East and really fallen in love with that kind of culture. Anyway, I realized quite quickly that that really wasn't what it was about. And I was far too emotional and too, I guess, creative within myself to go and do a role like that and to come back here and be okay. So I did that for about 12 months and pulled the pin and really didn't know what I wanted to do then. I went back to the gym, which was kind of what I always knew, and got back into PT. And that was on the Gold Coast for some time. We moved from the GC up to the Sunshine Coast in 2019, just before COVID kicked off. And that was a really turbulent time. I think COVID's been the greatest teacher that we've kind of seen. It's really set a lot of people free, stopped everyone in their tracks, and really made people ask themselves the big questions. And that was kind of where I found myself off the back of COVID. Long-term relationship. I'm engaged. I have 2-step kids, my own daughter. We're doing the private school thing. I'm working from home. We've opened 2 plant shops and 2 cafes, and it's ticking all these boxes that society puts in front of you, right? And for me, I was still at a point where it almost wasn't enough. And my relationship wasn't as good as it could have been. And our communication wasn't as good as it could have been. And I found myself with these habits that weren't serving me and just becoming someone that I didn't necessarily want to be. We moved from the most beautiful property in Montville down to the beach at Warana, and I started to get up and meditate. I started to get up with the sun. We were on the beach, and so I'd walk down and watch the sun come up each day, and I just started to do breath work and meditation. It just came really naturally. And with that comes this voice. With that comes this, I guess, this time and space that you can't kind of hide from. And I realized that this world that I'd created wasn't necessarily completely true to me. And that sent me into a bit of a spin. And that was really the beginning of this identity crisis, I suppose, around, well, who am I when I'm not the PT or the employer or the employee or the partner or the dad or the brother or the son. And who am I? And who am I left with when all of those things are taken away, which is kind of what happened. I really kicked my life basket over. I moved back in with my parents for some time just to really process what was going on. I quit my job. Over the next sort of 6 months, I closed my shops and my businesses, and my relationship was very turbulent. And in that journey, I think as a man, there's only so many routes you can go down, right? There's the one that we turn to with drink and drugs and addiction. There's suicide, which is what we are seeing a lot of when things get difficult. And then there's the path, I suppose, that I found myself on, which was asking the hard questions and looking for the answers. So I really became a seeker of myself when I realized that what I had created wasn't getting me where I wanted to be. It wasn't really who I was. And that's very confusing when you spent your whole life trying to tick boxes. And so in this, I hired mentors, I read books, I spent a lot of time meditating, a lot of time in nature, did all the plant medicines, a lot of breath work, and just really explored myself. And I was fortunate enough to meet some really beautiful mentors and people that have really stuck by me and taught me and sort of helped me get through what I was going through. And I documented my journey. I journaled a lot of things and all the practices that I did and all the modalities that I'd learned. And so I came out the other side of it feeling very different and with a new kind of lease on life and a new perspective. And a lot of people were picking up on that in my space and sort of asking me, what was going on. And naturally I fell into this role of kind of being a guide, being a mentor. I've walked many paths, I've had many experiences. And so nothing qualifies us better than experience. And through my own experience, I have been able to now share that and to help others. We all kind of struggle with the same things, whether it's relationship dynamics, finance, identity, passion, purpose. We're all humans and we're all here in the same kind of boat looking for the same answers. And I was lucky enough that the journey I took myself on, I was able to answer a lot of those. And so naturally now I'm helping a lot of other people answer those questions for themselves also. So that's kind of, I guess, who I am and how I got to here where I am now.
Wow. That's really interesting because when you mention all those things that you had from the outside perspective, someone would look at that and say, this guy has everything, he's got the life. But I guess that's a really good message just because you've ticked all the boxes and he's got the partner and he's got the family and he's got the cafes and businesses and whatnot, and the property or whatever. That doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be fulfilled. And it's a really good example right there. Doesn't really matter what you have. It's really about what's going on inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
And so through those mentors, you discovered the holographic neurocoding?
Yes, I've been working with a man named John since we met about 2 years, and he's really transformed my world. Now, John is a quantum energetic healer.
Mm.
He's also so much more than that. And I did a lot of healing with him, and he would work on me. And with this, he really taught me the power of language and words. And so I was starting to understand quantum language and how our thoughts and what we speak into reality starts to manifest. And I really started to change the way that I was showing up. Words like understand means you're agreeing to stand under someone. And so you don't give your power away in conversation by saying words like I understand. And it really helped me reframe where I was losing myself, where in relationships that I was leaky. And it was working with him that really kind of helped guide me and shape me in the language I was using to speak to myself. Now, this time a year ago, certain things were playing out in my relationship, and I was looking to move to Bali, and that had kind of all changed. And I really didn't know what was next. And I was in the shower one morning, and it was, I need to go to Thailand. And John, he's been a fantastic friend and mentor to me. And I was chatting to him. I'm like, John, I've got to go to Thailand. And he's like, yeah, Thailand feels good. And he just said to me kind of in a passing, you're going to meet your next teacher in Thailand around your birthday. And we take these things with a grain of salt, but he's, very intuitive and very connected. And sure enough, about a week into my trip into Thailand, it was my birthday. I turned 30 and I went and did this 14-day fast at a health retreat there. And I ended up meeting this man named Teo, an older Australian man, on the beach. And we did this session, and it was supposed to go for an hour, and it went for 4 hours. And it completely blew my mind. I've done my quantum energetics, I've done all my Reiki, I've done a lot of energetic work, again, plant medicines, shaman, different bits and pieces. This really kind of blew me away because I understand the neuroscience. I understand the science of the brain and the body and how that works. I understand the energy systems of the body. I also now understand the power of the language. And this modality kind of ties it all in. And
Mm.
so it was this really profound moment of just going, okay, this is unique and this is very special and I need to learn this. And so I've spent the last 12 months doing that. And it's only been recently that I've kind of put it out there to the public to do more of it. I've been working with a few people kind of in the background the past sort of 6 to 8 months while I've been studying. And yeah, the last 2, 3 weeks, put it out there. I got, again, meditating, that message comes in. It's like, you need to share this. And so I did. And I've picked up a lot of work in it. And obviously you've experienced it. And everyone that's doing this is staying on because it works and it's effective and it's accurate. And it's deeply profound. So
Mm.
that's sort of how I come about meeting Teo and getting into what I'm doing now, which is holographic neurocoding.
Mm. Yeah, when I booked in to have a session with you, honestly, I had no idea what to expect. And at the time, I felt like something wasn't right. I just didn't feel, I couldn't put my cognitive mind to it and my conscious mind to it. And I thought, well, let's just go in there and let's see what happens. And I realized you can actually pick up on subconscious stuff and you tap into the nervous system without the stories, obviously, to see how that's wired and what kind of stories you're playing out, sort of thing. Can you explain more about how?
Yeah. So when we build a bridge
Mm,
of consciousness between us, I'm able to feel your nervous system, similar to that of distant healing, be it Reiki or other practices. Now, we test like that of kinesiology in that it's muscle testing, but I'm not muscle testing you, I'm muscle testing me. And
mm,
so I can feel if it's coherent, which means it's in your neocortex, which means that's true for you. Or if it's stuck, it's in your limbic brain. Or if it's a complete stress, it's part of your cerebellum, which reflects your journey in terms of how you've processed information. Okay,
mm,
so as a child, we don't have an analytical mind, and so everything gets processed by the cerebellum and the subconscious, and that's largely our programming. So that's kind of how we test and navigate. I'm just asking, is this word or statement coherent, true, stuck, or stressed? Okay, in your energetic field. Then we navigate the hologram. So we have the 7 chakras. Well, there's more than that, but the 7 main ones. And each of those represents an information space. Now, we also have an auric field. Okay. So we have these many layers of light that come off of us, and information sits in this space. So, for example, we create a statement and we just test, where is this in your hologram? So is it subconscious? Yes, it is. Okay. So is it physical? Is it something to do with the mind? No, it isn't. Is it layer 1, 2, 3? Okay, it's layer 3. And so we can find very quickly where this is. And that kind of gives cues as to what needs to come next. Now,
mm,
the way language works is it lights up certain parts of the brain, depending on whether we've heard it or read it or spoken it and heard ourselves say it. So when I get you to repeat a statement to yourself, you're hearing it, and we are able to kind of watch what's happening in your system based on what you've just said. And you'd have noticed in your own experience when you say certain things, some of them feel really uncomfortable. Some of them feel like you almost can't speak them. Some of them feel really strong and good and clear. You experience brain fog, you experience confusion, and that's just you navigating these words. Okay. And this is why affirmations don't work. You can stand in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself all day. But if that's not actually true to the subconscious, it's making it worse. So that's a little bit of kind of how it works. We create statements, we work through a clearing process of making sure that they are clear and that we can replace it with something that you would prefer.
mm. Wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense because when I first got on the path of healing and self-development, affirmations were like one of the first things I came across. And I found it got me to a certain point, but then I didn't really get me further than that. And that makes sense when you explain that the subconscious is conflicted. That's not what it really believes. So no matter how much you repeat something, it's not going to get into that subconscious programming.
Yeah. Look, that sequence in which the brain lights up
Mm,
is the code. It's the ones and the zeros. That's what makes the program. So when we rearrange the words, we can rearrange the program. And now our minds are just computers, right?
mhm,
It's no different to your phone. When you're born, you're like a fresh iPhone. You've got dad chucking some programs on, you've got mum putting apps on, you've got society's apps going on there, teachers' apps, you've got religious apps. And we become these adults operating from these phones or computers with all these apps. And we're going, shit, what's mine? What's not mine? Which ones serve me and which ones don't? Now,
mhm,
the problem is if you've got 100 apps on your phone, you're only aware of 5 of them. Yeah, because the conscious mind is only 5%. So we go on these healing journeys navigating with 5% of what's there. And that's why it's so profound, because 95 of those apps on your phone, you don't even know you've got. And
mhm,
they show up in your life as relationship problems, money issues, self-belief, self-worth, these same patterns, right? Running, the same kind of things playing out. And you're there and you're going to Reiki and you're going to sound healing and you're reading the books and you're doing the affirmations and you're wondering why it's not shifting. It's not shifting because you actually don't know what you don't know.
mhm,
And that's why this work and other works, what's the word? Like hypnosis, or even past life regressions can be effective because you're starting to work with the subconscious.
mm,
Even in meditation, like, you're going to create awareness of certain things that are there, but it's hard to navigate. It's hard to pinpoint, okay, what's the actual stress here? And I think that's what's so unique and profound about the holographic neurocoding is it's so accurate. Like, you can bypass years of guesswork and counseling and even psychology, which for a long time has been pushed by therapists and psychologists and society as a whole. When you have a problem, you go and see a psychologist. Yeah, that's great if you want to just reaffirm the story that right?
mm,
You're just like reconfirming the problems. You're just talking about what's there. What we need to start talking about is what is beneath all of that, is
mm.
asking ourselves, what's under that? What's under that? And that's why some certain practices, asking yourself, okay, what's the energy I'm feeling? What's under that? What's under that? What's under that? Until you get to the bottom can really help also. But this is just a really accurate way to pinpoint what's in the space for you.
Yeah, that's what I really valued about the session with you was just straight to the point. And like I said, I wasn't conscious of any of it. I knew some things weren't right. And then you straight away picked up on every single thing. And when you brought it to my conscious awareness, I was like, that's actually a thing. Like I can relate to that. And I can relate to that. And I was so amazed at how accurate it was, and then I could see it playing out in my life right now, and then you cleared all of that, which was really cool. But like you said, it saves a lot of that time. And even sometimes with therapies, I find that people say stuck in things because to society's, I guess, beliefs, that's what's best. But for that person, it's not. And so that therapist or that person is promoting or supporting that behavior, but it might not be the best thing. Does that make sense for the person or their higher self?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're young and we have all these programs running, and then when you start doing the work to peel back those layers and remove those programs, and I guess I'm curious because I'm kind of at this place now where I found that the more healing I do and the more layers I'm peeling back and the programs that I'm removing, I'm becoming pretty much essentially a clean slate. And I'm getting to a point where I'm like, okay, I had all these identities attached to all these programs, and even with narcissism, I've created identities around that, behaving in a certain way to appease narcissistic people. And now I'm coming to a point where I'm a clean slate and I can be who I want to be, but who who is that? And where do I get that from? So that's where I'm at now. So where do you go from there? How do you work with that level of being?
So for me, I created a journey and I call it the NEUMA process. And it's a course that I've created that answers those questions of who am I? Why am I here? What am I here to create? And it was built off my own experience because I was left with the exact same questions. I almost have this vision, right, of it's like you've got this house that's covered in plants and vines and trees and the garden's overgrown. And we spend our whole lives like pruning the garden, but we
Mm.
don't actually pull it all apart and, okay, look at the house, look at the foundation. And good chances are it needs to be bulldozed, right? And we actually have to completely flatten it to be able to recreate something new. As there's a saying, and it's the phoenix only rises from the ashes once everything is burnt. And this is where we get caught out in these healing processes, is that we like doing the stuff that feels good. We don't like doing the stuff that doesn't. And so we do a little bit of healing. We do a little bit of going back through our past, a little bit of digging. It's like adding an extension to a broken home.
Mm.
We have to go there. You have to go to the depths of your darkness. And essentially that's what the PNEUMA process is. It's a step-by-step journey through that, where the first whole module is about the mind. All right. And we go through the shadow and the ego and the mum and the dad and forgiveness and resentment and you name it. We uncover every stone. The middle component is all about the body. So coming back to self, coming back to navigating from emotions, understanding the mind is a tool, but needing to use our heart to work through. We look at our relationships with food, relationship with the world around us, relationship with our bodies, is a big component there on the masculine and the feminine, the essence of our relationships and where we're going wrong, as a society, as a collective. And then we move through to the soul, which is the last 4 modules, which is all about the human energy systems. So we look at the chakras and the kundalinis and what they mean and how to use them and how to heal with color. We look at intuition and the tarot and using the tarot as a tool. We look at quantum language. We look at ascension of the soul. And so it's this real kind of like step-by-step journey from the very beginning, the where you are right now, to where you want to be, and understanding yourself from a neuroscience perspective and how your mind actually works, understanding what your body's showing you and trusting it again and using it to navigate. And then the actual energetics, the fun stuff, the conscious manifestation, the knowing that you are a creator. You can choose who you want to be, which is what you just spoke into. And that now you've got the tools to actually do that. And that's, I guess, for me, was when I didn't have the tools, I created a toolkit. And that's what the PNEUMA process is. It's a toolkit so that no matter where you're at, you know how to navigate. If you're trying to create something new, you know how to do it. If you're dealing with a really messy relationship dynamic and you're going through a horrific breakup, you know how to stay centered. You know your habits, you know your beliefs, you know who you are. And that's, for me, the fundamental of our entire existence is built upon the relationship with ourself. The relationship with yourself is the most important one there is, and that dictates how you relate to everything else, be it nature, other people, the world around you. And so that's what so much of, whether it's energetic healing, be it Reiki and quantum, or holographic neuro-coding, or I'm taking people on a more of like a mentoring coaching journey down the PNEUMA process, it's all about improving the relationship with yourself. Because once that is clear and clean and you are confident and you are happy and healthy within who you are, everything else falls into place. You know your purpose. You know what you're passionate about. You set boundaries and you go, I'm not doing that anymore. And you know what? This used to excite me, but I'm actually going to choose something healthy now. And that's when our lives start to improve, when we spend a little bit of time getting to know ourselves and then honoring that. So in a roundabout way of answering your question, it's this search of who you are and then actually being that, right? When no one's looking, actually embodying who it is that you want to be.
Mm. Without seeking that validation or seeking that to fit in, it's just purely you.
Yeah, yeah, because we create from inside out, right?
Mm.
And we've been conditioned and taught that we respond to the world around us. And that's true to a degree, yes, but
Yeah.
we're creating from inside out. And so this space, this heart center of yours, needs to be intentional in what it's putting out there. It's your heart and your mind are working together. When you create coherence, and this is why meditation is so powerful, is that it creates coherence. And
Mm.
what that means is it makes you magnetic, right?
Mm.
When we create magnets, we melt down liquid metal and we put it inside a magnetic field. And it's that magnetic field that rearranges the particles in a certain way that once it's set, you can take it and it's always magnetic. right? And you know what that feels from, school, what a magnet feels like. There's an energy about it. So when we meditate and we sit with ourselves, we align our energy fields to become magnetic, right? And this is why you can walk into a room and you can be drawn to some people and repulsed by others, because just like a magnet, they're also highly repulsive if the ends are in that space. And so I believe we almost have a duty to make ourselves as magnetic as possible. And if you want to live a really beautiful, abundant, happy, healthy lifestyle, why wouldn't you make yourself as magnetic as possible? And that comes from being with you.
I love that. Do you feel, Henry, that each soul has a blueprint, and when we're able to connect to ourselves and remove all that noise, so to speak, we can align to that blueprint and live from the soul's desires and the purpose of the soul?
1000%. 1000%. This has become a mental reality, and we're all trying to navigate it with our minds. Okay. And our minds have been programmed, our minds have been misled. Okay. Our heart is soul led. And so when we start to use our mind as the tool that it is, a beautiful, powerful tool,
Mm,
start to navigate with the soul, with the heart, in terms of what you just spoke into, the blueprint, the purpose, why you're here. Yeah, life becomes magic.
mm,
I honestly think, just from the work that I've done in myself and with other people, we're here to heal ourselves, to get over our trauma story and our ego, and to kind of really like get over that, pay our karma.
mm,
It's to heal, then it's to share. It's to share the gifts. Your biggest obstacle is your greatest gift, right? And I'm seeing this now, people that are working through incredible relationship dynamics, dealing with suicide, dealing with addictions. Once they get through these things, they are becoming their greatest gifts. That's what they're helping other people do. And so we shy away from the things that make us us. But the truth is, that darkness, that thing you've struggled with your whole life, that abuse that you suffered, that's what makes you you. And that is what you chose to come here to experience, so that you can help others overcome it. And so, yeah, when you say, is there a blueprint? Yeah, 100% there is.
mm. Yeah, and the only way to truly know and to help others is walking that path as well. So, yeah, I guess I see it that way too. It's like our biggest challenges and our biggest battles that we're given in this lifetime, if we can overcome that, then that's when we know that that's something we can help others with. Like that's part of our blueprint.
Yeah. Yeah. We're kind of moving from, there's three levels to truth, right? There's the taught truth, which is what you experience in school and what you're told is true. Then there's experiential truth, where you're going, you and me can have different truths because we can both experience something, and it
Mm,
can be very different experiences for both of us, but both is true. So we're moving away from a collective taught truth into an experiential truth, right? Where we're understanding that we've all got our own truths. And then there's universal truth, which is the universal principles of polarity and cause and effect and different things like that, which kind of override and govern everything. But we are moving away from being told who you are, being told that you need to go to school and you need to get a job. We are starting to move into that space of experiential truth. And that's what we're wanting to share,
mm,
right? Because it's true for us. We've lived it, we know it. Yeah. And so when we see it, we know it. And that's kind of what we're seeing as a collective show up more and more.
mm. And what would your advice be for those who, I guess, in the community battling with and fearful of what's going on in society when it comes to, things like digital ID and enforcing laws and changes that are occurring on the outside, where people are becoming very focused and immersed into and fearful about. What's your advice? How should we be addressing what's happening in the collective energies and still remain in our power without letting that affect us?
Okay, so cool. Just to kind of give context, right, is we perceive we're all on this one kind of global planet,
Hmm.
right? From my awareness, we each have our own. And there's an overlap, which is the collective consciousness, yes. Okay, but you're still creating every single thing in your world. So, D, if I said to you, on the 1st of December this year, an asteroid's going to hit the Earth and it's going to wipe out everyone, right? If you believe that to be so true, you could align with the timeline where that is possible. And in your reality, on the 1st of December, an asteroid will hit your Earth and you will perish, as will everyone else in your perceived construct. Okay, but in my world, where I don't believe that to be true, I get a message from someone on Facebook saying, shit, did you hear Dee's had a heart attack? Dee's died of an aneurysm, right? So you've still been removed from my reality, but I didn't experience what you experienced because that wasn't true for me in my world.
Wow.
So when we look at these collective things, be it war in the Middle East, be it agendas, be it laws, they are only going to have as much power as you choose to give to them. Now, this will sound maybe a little bit controversial, right? But the only things that exist in my reality is where I am here and now. Okay. And so I remember when I was in Thailand last time and, you know, these wars in Syria and Gaza and different things were kicking off. I remember watching certain videos and being so emotionally triggered and upset by it. I was honestly in the shower crying, going to book flights to go over there. And I didn't even know what I was going to do. I was going to hand out water bottles, right? And I had this thing come through and it was like, Henry, the only way that I can change this world is by changing my world and being the example that I wish to be. And if I put all of my energy into something that doesn't make me feel good, then that's what I'm doing. I am giving my energy to something that doesn't feel good. I am fueling that. Okay. And it's nothing more than a belief. And when everyone stops believing in it, it will vanish. And so, for example, with COVID, we had people that were pro-vax, people that were anti-vax, and people in between that didn't know what to do. It didn't matter. Whether you were pro-vax, anti, pro the whole thing, anti the whole thing, it didn't matter. It was such a clever agenda because it captured everybody. Everybody's attention, whether you were pro or anti, didn't matter. You felt so strongly about your belief, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Everyone's attention was on it, which is why it becomes so big, so powerful. And it wasn't until people just turned off their TVs and went, you know what, I actually don't care. I don't care whether you're pro or you're anti, or they stopped giving their attention to it. Did it fade? Did it start to fall away? Now, I still run into people in the gym that talk to me about COVID like it is happening here and now, because for them, it is. For me, I have to be reminded of, oh, that's right. Because I chose to take all of my energy out of it and just do my own thing. And so it's the same with these scary things, right? They scare us. You're scared of them. And that's why you're focusing on them. And I promise you this, you get what you focus on. And so as maybe as ignorant as this sounds, because of things like, you know, starvation and war and different things, you're creating what you focus on. And this is why people like Mother Teresa said, I will never go to an anti-war rally, because anti-war is still putting all of your energy into war. I will go to pro-peace rallies, right? Because my energy is going towards peace. It is going towards what I desire. You know, a realization that I had with the military was I joined up to do good things. But my belief is that I'd like war to end. War ends when we stop signing up as soldiers. So I don't get to sign up as a soldier and think I'm stopping war. I am part of the problem, even though my intention's pure. War stops when we stop becoming soldiers. And so these agendas stop and these things stop when you stop putting your attention into them.
Wow, that's such a good way of explaining it all. And I never had that example or perspective of when the individual is on a different time reality. In their realm, they've experienced that event. In your realm, they've just done a heart attack. I've never seen it that way, but that actually makes sense. I totally get that.
We all have our own worlds, and you get to choose what's in yours.
Yeah.
Simply by where you put your attention.
And that really makes that quote, "If you want to change the world, change yourself," it means something even more when you put it that way, when you break it down like that. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I love that. I feel like that's so empowering, and I do find it interesting. There is this element of people who didn't get vaccinated and saw through what was happening. They feel that they're at a higher level than others, but really they're still focusing on what they don't want. And like you said, what you focus on is pretty much what's gonna be fed.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we can all relate to, right, is these platforms, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, they are free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because your attention is what fuels them. They don't need your money. They need your attention. COVID didn't need you to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. It needed your attention. And so where you place your attention is where your energy goes. It's what you're creating. As human beings, we have the ability to turn a thought into a physical manifestation. We are creator beings. And
Mm,
other entities and energies know this, and they will dictate us to create for them. Yeah.
mm,
And this is where, without going down too many rabbit holes, other things will create off energy vortexes that we create. Okay. And so if we can create a lot of negative energy for it in a space, other things will fuel off that.
mm,
And it's really important that rather than getting on the plane and going over to Israel, right? I just go, hey, no. The way I change the world is by helping those that cross my path, by being the change that I wish to see, by putting all of my attention into the light. Yeah,
mm,
because the darkness shows up, right? And the darkness, we see this often now as this like light and dark, demons, entities, all the rest of it. Truth is, the darkness is the distraction.
mm,
Darkness is your phone. Darkness is that thing that you choose to do when you know you could do the right thing. And it's as simple as I say, being distracted. When we become present here and now, you remain in the unknown, and that's where the magic happens.
mm,
If there's certain things in your reality, in your world that you don't like, that don't make you feel good, tune out.
mm,
Because what makes your world feel good is how you feel, right? And these videos, these stories, it's horrific. It's your responsibility is to tune out of anything that doesn't make you feel good.
mm. Yeah. It makes me think about one of my plant medicine journeys that I had. I was taken to a dark place, and what it was showing me was a true master can stand in the darkest of places and still shine their light. That's what a true master is, because we're always going to have the darkness in this duality world, but it's about how your choices you make and how you respond. And I guess that plays into being the master of your mind, because the mind is a program, and there's always going to be those signs or things that you hear or things that you see, but what are you allowing to play out from that in your mind? What reality are you choosing? And
Yes.
you look around you, and it's interesting, when I'm driving, you see a lot of the police signs and stuff like that. And I'm starting to realize as I'm going along my journey that that's there because they want us to be focused on that. But if you just choose to ignore it and not focus on it, you're not playing into that reality of fear towards police or authority or whatever. And I've noticed in my own life, and I've had my own experiences where, for example, when I was traveling to Thailand, I was really excited. I was really happy. I was focused on the new journey. And throughout the whole process, everything worked out for me. But other people, when they told me about their experience, they were stopped because they didn't have a return ticket, and then they were harassed about this and harassed about that. And they're like, "Did that not happen to you?" And I was like, "No, it didn't." And I realized, because I didn't put that in my reality. I didn't think about that. I was feeling happy, excited, and it didn't, I guess, align to my energies. And if we could live like that, we could go through life with no issues whatsoever. Like everything would just flow, right?
We can, and we are.
Yeah.
And And so this is kind of this exciting space of conscious manifestation, right? Is we are manifesting all the time. Now the problem when we are manifesting from ego
Mm.
is we are faced with so many obstacles. Okay, because we haven't come back to this space of being and truth and self-identity and knowing who we are, therefore knowing what we want to create. Therefore, we create what we think we should be creating based on what other people want to see us in. You know, I want to be seen in the Mercedes. I want to be seen with the big watch. I want to be seen with the da, 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 da. So we're creating from ego, and ego creations are faced with so many obstacles. And now moving forward, like energetically, universally, that way of creating is starting to fall apart. So people that are doing things and creating from that space are going to be faced with problems. Then there's the other side of coming back to self, sitting in stillness, moving from a place of being, right? Being, doing. It's the feminine, which is the being, the creative energy sits in here. And then we take the action, which is the masculine, and that becomes the creation. Now, when we create from being, there is going to be far less obstacles. There'll still be obstacles, but they're no longer challenging, right? They're no longer, this is why they say, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, because it doesn't feel like work, because it feels good. So when you're creating from this space of truth and being, there's going to be obstacles. There's things to navigate, of course, but they don't feel like that. And so often, if you're, put it this way, I will wake up most days and I'll say, universe, if it's for me, make it easy. If it isn't, make it difficult, right? And you start to see so clearly, like, shit, I'm forcing this, put it down. This is flowing. This feels good. I'm going to keep going here. And it's the same kind of thing. You're either creating from ego or you're creating from truth or soul or self. And knowing the difference is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And those who are creating from ego, would you say the trauma or programs that they developed in childhood?
Yeah. So the ego, for me, I used to think of the ego as like the buff guy on the beach in budgie smugglers taking pictures. Ego is so much more complex than that. It's a protective personality. It's based upon your past. It's based upon your experiences to keep you safe. Okay. And so, yes, it is programmed to keep you safe. And therefore, you can be really grateful and thankful for your ego. But it's also when to recognize when it's leading and when it's not. So, like think of yourself in the car. When the ego is in control, it's driving, right? And it is doing 1,000,000 miles an hour and it's crashing into things. It's going through red lights. It's getting speeding tickets. It's out of control. And it's your job to go, cool, I'm going to pop you over here and put you in the passenger side because you're the guide. You're the best guide I've got. You know me better than anyone. You know the things that make me feel safe and the things that don't. And so you're going to sit here whilst I drive the car. And when the ego starts to pipe up and gets a little bit loud, that's when you stop and you recognize, okay, cool. There's something here that makes me feel unsafe. And you can ask, where else have I felt like this? Where else have I been and done this? Right? Relationships are a perfect example. We sabotage, we run away, we don't communicate well, we do all of these things. That's because our ego has kind of flared up and we haven't put it in its place. We haven't done something different. We've allowed it to kind of take over. And that's when, again, we create from ego and things start to fall apart quite quickly. So the ego can be your absolute best friend. You just need to know it and have boundaries around it and know when it's showing up and know when it isn't.
So in a way, the ego can serve us on our journey.
Absolutely. And there's so much stigma around like needing to kill the ego and ego death and all of the rest of it. Nah, like integrate it, use it. He is your greatest guide. He's been there with you the whole time. You know, and a practice I get people to do that I work with is give it a name, right? Name or her or however that looks to you. And when they show up, you can have that conversation because it becomes that. It doesn't become a reaction. And that's when it's a problem, is when you're behaving in a way that you're not aware of, it's ego. Okay. Once you become aware that you are doing the same thing over and over, it's no longer ego. You have awareness of it. It's now behavioral. It's now a habit or a pattern. Okay. So when people say, oh, I did it from ego. No. If you did it and you were aware that you did it because that's a behavior or a pattern, right? And behaviors and patterns are choices, right? You chose to do that. People that are operating from ego aren't aware they are operating from ego. It's a complete safety mechanism.
Wow, that's a really big differentiation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I haven't actually heard anyone ever really talk about the ego in such a positive way before.
Yeah, no, ego is your greatest guide.
Yeah. It's there for a reason, otherwise it wouldn't be there, right?
In terms of like survival, we're pretty useless. Like every other animal adapts to its environment. We
Mm.
adapt the environment to us. Like if we didn't have mums and dads as babies, we would not be here. We would not be here. We are beyond useless. And so our ego 1000% keeps us safe.
Mm, so true. So you mentioned you have a young daughter. She's very sweet. I see her on your Instagram at times. I want to ask you, knowing what you know now about all the holographic neurocoding and the programs and stuff like that, obviously raising a daughter, do you notice the differences in the awareness you have with her and her journey as opposed to kids that are just being raised in environments and systems that aren't supporting who she is and are adding programs? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Look, parenting doesn't come with a guidebook. And I don't know that it's possible to get it 100% right. Myself and Frankie's mum have been on a real journey, and we've made plenty of mistakes, and we're all doing the best we can with what we've got, right? And so I didn't know what I know now then. And so how I choose to parent now is different to how I did then, right? And so, yes, to answer your question, do I notice? I notice many things with her. For example, human design and gene keys is a really interesting space. Now, Frankie, my daughter, she's a generator, right? And generators have sacral energy. Okay. So it means when they do things that are in alignment with them, they have infinite abundant energy.
Mm.
Okay. And so when I have her and we spend time together, she wakes up early and she is swimming and she is running around and she's drawing and doing all the things she loves. She is still going at 9 o'clock at night on fire, right? Because she's a generator. She does the things she loves. She's 6 years old. She can do that so easily. The day she goes to school, she comes home and she is flat as a tack at 3 o'clock.
Mm.
So I know that the whole schooling system does not serve her. And so part of the future that we're creating is the ability to do that differently, whether it's homeschool or it's something different like Montessori. That will serve her far better because I can recognize her energy in different spaces, right?
Mhm.
And we have suppressed this idea that you should just do jobs that don't make you feel good. You should just go to school that don't make you feel good. It's because it's what we have to do. No, it's not what we have to do. It's about recognizing what makes you feel good and doing more of that. And so I can see for her that schooling system as it is right now doesn't work. It doesn't serve her or her highest good.
Mm.
In terms of how do I show up as a father for her, I no longer perceive her as mine. You know, I'm her dad. I am to guide her. I am to encourage her. I am to support her. I am to love her and nurture her. But I am not to dictate to her what is right or wrong. I'm not to dictate to her what she can or can't do, or who she can or can't be, or what she can or can't wear, or how she chooses to show up. I was in a bookshop with her a couple of weeks back, and she picked up the Bible, this kid's Bible. And it's all she wanted, right? It's all she wanted. And she said, Dad, can I get this? I said, baby, of course you can get this. If this is what you're interested in, of course. I'm not religious. My dad is really anti that. My mum is on her own spiritual journey.
Mm.
But who am I to say to my baby, you can't explore this because I think it's wrong? I'm not going to do that to anyone. If she wants to explore that path and that spiritual journey and that side of things, I'm here to encourage that. I'm here to keep her safe and to take her on her own journey. And I
Mm.
think this is where we've been so let down by old ways of doing things, is we've been so told, through authority figures, be it mom or dad or teachers, as to who we are and what's okay and what's not okay and what you should be looking into and what you shouldn't be looking into. And, if you're born in the Middle East, you study Islam. And if you're born in Australia, you're probably either atheist or Christian, or depending on our environments dictates who we are. And for me now, I think there's enough information. We have enough access to stuff to go, well, you can be whoever you want to be. And as a father, role model, that's my job, is to be the example, right?
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And that's also taking into consideration the individual and who they want to be and how they want to express themselves. And we're not shutting that down.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of the holographic work I'm doing with people, it's clearing out authority from the mother and the father. Like, it's our biggest issues is clearing out the authority complexes that the mother and father have instilled,
Mm.
or society, or, you know, just authority complexes in general. And I refuse to be that in her life. She is an individual.
Mm.
And the quicker we kind of all start to treat each other like that, the quicker we're all going to get home together.
Mm. And collectively, that the whole COVID thing was the authority figure at a collective scale. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? And I'll speak into this because I know this for you is a really pivotal point in your own journey.
Yeah.
But again, through holographic work, this is why I love it, because it teaches me so much. Working with a lady, and for her, it was all about change. She was really struggling to change and was really struggling with her husband. Okay. And what I found was, when we tested into it, the authority complex that came through COVID presented itself as a masculine energy. So everyone experienced COVID as a masculine energy, which is why now, a couple years later, men are not trusting themselves and their own masculine energy. Women are not trusting the masculine energy because we have all been so hurt and so let down and so suppressed by it that it is showing up in all of our relationships. It's showing up in men and women all over the globe as this masculine authority complex, because that's how it presented itself. And when I kind of felt into that and could see that, that really helped me understand why our relationships are falling apart. Okay. Because women, the feminine is not trusting the masculine, and the masculine is not trusting the masculine. And it's throwing the polarity right out. And we need to sit with what happened and let go and heal that and forgive ourselves and just forgive in general, so that we can start to recreate the polarity, which is going to create the strong individuals, which is going to create the strong unions, which is going to create the strong families, which is going to create the strong community and the strong nation and the strong globe. So it still starts with us. We
Mm.
need to sit with the things that have hurt us and let us down. Okay. Because there are people now too scared to go overseas in case the rules are going to change. They're too scared to surrender to their partners because they don't feel safe to do so. And I found that so interesting, how that dynamic showed itself as masculine energy.
Mm. I totally see that when you explain that. And in a way, it's served as a catalyst, or I guess it shun the places where we're lacking
Yeah.
and where the shadow, the collective shadow is. You know,
Yeah.
which is like you said, men who don't trust themselves. Because if they did trust themselves, that wouldn't have ever played out the way it did. It's the masculine needs to find himself again in a way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The masculine didn't trust itself enough to stand up against what was playing out or what it perceived as wrong. Therefore, where does that leave the women? If the men aren't standing up, where does that leave the feminine? It
Mm.
doesn't. They're all out there defending for themselves, also feeling unsafe. How do we trust? How do we surrender? Like,
Mm.
it's such an exciting space to explore. It's also heartbreaking, right? But having the awareness and being able to speak into it and share it, like, it's these moments now where we're giving each other keys.
Mm.
We're giving each other new ideas, new perspectives, and this is largely how we heal and change.
Mm. And having that awareness with the masculine and feminine energies, what do you think of this whole thing about identifying as a woman when you're a man and all the gender stuff that's happening at the moment? How do you perceive all that? And do you think that's confusing people, throwing off the imbalance?
Look, I think, like, if I look at the laws of, say, cause and effect,
Mm.
this is the effect of a cause, and that cause is a deep loss of identity. It's a deep mistrust in self, a deep mistrust in society. It's these agendas that are playing out that are having large influence. So I choose not to entertain that space. However, I can recognize that young children don't have that choice.
Mm.
analytical mind. And I do think it's wrong that it is pushed into their spaces. And so for me and my children in that realm, I make sure they're not in environments where that is happening.
Mm.
Um, but in terms of, is it right or wrong? I don't buy into it like that. It's playing out, right? Because it's showing us ourselves. Right? And so for the people that are recognizing that this doesn't feel quite right, amazing,
Mm.
perfect. Because if it wasn't showing up, you wouldn't be able to have that awareness. So there's something to be grateful in everything. Okay. There's light and dark in everything, yin and yang, all the rest of it. And so rather than me fighting this or being outspoken about what I think, it's just recognizing, okay, this for me doesn't resonate. I'm going to steer clear of that space. And the people that I also care about, that I have influence over and with, I'm going to also lead by example and share my thinking in on that. The further I go down this track, the more almost, I guess, traditional I become, which is really interesting. There's a lot of these values, from the religions that are really, I think, important to creating a society. And at the end of the day, we need to call a spade a spade. And we suffer when we want something to be different to how it is. Okay. And so if you're going up against an agenda like this, you're going to suffer. But
Mm.
I think for the individuals that are also struggling with those questions for themselves on a personal level, we suffer when we want something to be different to how it is. Yeah. So
Mm.
there needs to be this element of self-love and self-acceptance. And again, through the holographic work, I'm seeing a lot of people are changing themselves based on what others have told them to do or be. Okay. And I think the question's so much grayer, but also deeper than what's happening. What's happening is the symptom. Yeah. It's the effect of something much bigger.
Yeah. The way I see it is, I think it's shining a light on how children are being raised to, I guess, not being honored for who they are. And then, therefore, when these outside influences come in, they're becoming confused and they're not connected to their self. Because if they were, they wouldn't want to be another gender. Does that make sense? So it's highlighting that detachment to self as a result of unconscious parenting. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's absolutely, but it's also, I think it's the definition of distraction. It's
Mhm.
this idea that the grass is greener. It's the idea that the next thing's the answer, right? So if I'm miserable as a man, why on earth would I be happy as a woman?
Mm.
If I'm miserable here on the Sunshine Coast, why would I be happy in Thailand? If I'm miserable in this relationship with this person, why would I be happy with another, right? It's like
So
kids
true.
that get bullied in one school, they get bullied in every single school because that's what they're attracting in.
Mm.
Right? And so it's my duty to be the very best and the happiest and healthiest version that I can be with me here now. And the next thing is not going to make a difference.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so it's that, again, journey back to self. And I think you're absolutely spot on in saying that people haven't been honored.
Mm.
People haven't been honored. You can imagine in a household where you've got a young girl and a young boy, if that little girl is treated really well by the mum and the dad, and the boy's given a hard time, and by the time he's an adult, of course he's probably going to be a girl because he's witnessed from a young age that girls get treated better than boys, and that's his belief system. And
Mm.
so as a young man, he's struggling with this and that, and all the rest of it doesn't fit in because he has, no self-worth and hasn't been empowered and doesn't know his emotions, and because he hasn't been taught who he is or how to even navigate that space. Of course he wants to be a girl
Mm. That
because
makes
that's the answer, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because
It's
that programming of being a man or boy is not safe or not accepted or not valued. So,
this is this complex with money and finance.
mm.
98% of the people that sit down with me and say, okay, well, what would you like to work on? They say, I want to work on my finance. Cool. For what? It makes no difference. Whether you have $100 in your bank account or 100,000, the issues remain. The money's not the thing here. And that's why going beneath what's showing up is so powerful.
Yeah.
Every single complex has something beneath it. Whatever's showing up on the surface is the symptom. It's the byproduct of something else.
Yes. And I love that because that's what I do in my practice with naturopathy.
Yeah.
It's like all this stuff going on, but what's happening underneath? Like that's what I want to know because that is what you have to, if you want to ultimately have change that is permanent and heal the person, you need to look at what's going on right at the root, you know? So that's the same sort of concept. And when you mentioned the traditional values, I have also been seeing there's two extremes that I see playing out. You have the really, really religious archetype, and then the other archetype is there's just nothing. It's just, it is what it is. And I find that the middle point is understanding that there's cause and effect. And people on this side of the extreme, there's no accountability. And then this side of the extreme, there's just so much fear that people are stuck and afraid to be themselves. So I see the importance of coming to the midpoint with those traditional values, but also understanding that your actions will have an effect. There's, I guess, karma is a word to use. And I've seen the dangers in people who don't believe in anything and
Mm.
their actions will not have an impact on accountability. And I find in society, it's either going that way or the other way, which can be a bit concerning, if that makes sense. So it's good to see that although you're very open-minded, you also got those traditional values, which is the anchor, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, values is a really interesting space, and I do the value component in the NEUMA process is quite big because it really is the lens that you look at the world from, right? And how you're looking at the world is how you're creating the world. So I spend quite a lot of time in that space with people,
Mm,
really helping them understand what their values are. Because I promise you, every single person that I get to answer the questions on values doesn't get the concept of values. And I do it in this way to show them that because it's really interesting what we think our values are versus what they actually are when we unpack it in a way that makes sense for us.
mhm.
So yeah, in terms of getting to know you and you know your own evolution and how you want to show up in the world, spending times around your values is really, really powerful.
Mm,
I,
yeah.
working on this concept at the moment, it's like this triangle, right? And it's for me, and I think for most men, our highest value is that of freedom. You know, that's kind of terms of the essence of masculine and feminine. For men, they want freedom and women want protection, just the essence of the energy. And so I asked myself, okay, how do I achieve freedom? And when I look at the triangle of what makes that up, it's health, wealth, and relationships. Okay, because if I have health and relationships, but no wealth, well, I don't have freedom. And if I have wealth and relationships, but no health, there's also no freedom. And if I have health and a lot of money, but no relationships, well, there's no freedom in that either. And so you start to kind of see how they all overlap and
Mm,
overplay. And I'm experimenting now with like this idea that it's not even about relationships, it's about connection. Okay. Because you can be in a relationship, but if there's no connection, well, what's it matter? So I'm almost wondering if it becomes health, wealth, and connection. But it's asking these questions and reflecting on, okay, where do I stand with that? How does that impact me in my life? So if I know my highest value is freedom, then every choice needs to go through the filter of, okay, does this make me healthier? Is this good or bad for my connection with myself and others? And does this add to my resources? Be it resources or wealth doesn't need to be money. Resources can be knowledge, can
mm,
be a new book, it can be learning a skill, it can be saving some money, it can be cutting down a subscription, right? Because all these things come to freedom. And this is also part of what I realized 3 years ago is I built this, as you said, from the outside in, this beautiful life, house, cars, all the rest of it, right? I was so far from free. I was so far from free. And now I have one bag and enough stuff to fill it. And I can take that bag and I can go anywhere. And I am that much closer to free that that's what feels good to me now. And this shows us this whole polarity complex around the things we're striving for are often not what we actually want. And we don't know that when we don't know ourselves and we don't know our values. Okay. And so we're spending our lives and our time and our energy creating things that we don't actually want.
Mm. I hope everyone in the world watches this. So good. Okay, so I have a pretty deep question. How am I going to word this? Let me think. Okay, so say in one reality, you've manifested a disease, a condition, a health issue. With your holographic neurocoding, can you go back and, I guess, undo that programming that created or manifested that disease in order to heal? Is that possible?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Of course. Yeah, of course. It's cause and effect, right? We just need to go back to the creation of that moment and change it. Okay, just to take this a little bit further, something I'm kind of experimenting with at the moment is being able to manipulate time. Okay. And so what I would like to be able to do with people is, for example, people that got vaccinated that now wish they didn't, we can go back to the point of creation, consciously change what took place and have them align with the timeline where they made a different choice. Okay. And so one of the experiments that I'm kind of like practicing or like starting to toy with at the moment is this concept of tattoos. So if
Mm,
you have a tattoo on this physical body, can we go back in various different techniques, holographic meditation, time travel, different things? Can we go back to the point of where you first had the idea of creating this for yourself? Can we go back and choose something different and have a different impact in the now? Because I 1000% believe it's possible, just from what I have seen and various different spaces that I've been in. And so I'm kind of starting to toy with, because we see it with disease all the time, right?
yeah.
I can tell you some crazy stuff that people have healed doing crazy things. That's almost easy. Now I want to see if we can change like physical choices, like things around vaccinations, like things around tattoos. Okay, because then it asks this another question, right? So just for example, if I had a big neck tattoo, right, and you know me as the guy with the neck tattoo, right? But I go back in my own timeline and make a different choice, right? Is it possible that I remove it for me so that it's no longer in my reality? But when our realities cross, do you still see it? Or do
Mm,
you also not see it? Right. And this is where like there's timelines and there's all kinds of different weird spaces. Do I still have that neck tattoo in your perception, even though in mine it's gone or not? And again, this is just a space that I often find myself kind of just thinking into, because nothing is as it seems. And I know that we can change anything and everything when we put our minds to it. And so, yes, physical disease, yes, 1000%. But you need to want to.
mm,
You need to want to, and you need to believe that you can.
yeah,
And you need to set about taking actions that allow that to happen for you.
totally. Cool. That's exactly what I was wanting to know. So thanks for explaining that. So, Henry, at the moment, you're doing one-on-one sessions with people with the holographic neurocoding, and you have a course as well.
Yeah. So the course is like this immersion that runs between sort of 3 and 6 months.
Mm,
And I've done it in three different ways. You can do it completely on your own, where it's an online course, right? You just jump on there and buy it and take yourself through it. We can do it where it's almost guided. So we catch up at the key points in the course and we have a conversation kind of like this, where you go through all your notes and we unpack everything that you've discovered. And then I have like the immersive one, which is where we go through the entire thing together. And yeah, look, depending on where you're at in your own journey, like you're going to know what you require. But it's been deeply profound. It's been really incredible watching people transform over a period of 3 to 6 months working through it. I'm really proud of what I've created because it works so well. And yeah, the neurocoding is very much just sort of like one-off sessions like this. What I'd like to see people do is do both, is where they're taking themselves on this journey of asking themselves the questions. So they're raising their own awareness, And then we're unpacking it even further with stuff like neurocoding. So I
Mm.
guess the whole principle of what I'm trying to do now is like help people transform
Mm.
that relationship with self.
Yeah. And if people were interested in learning about what you do or booking in, how could they find you?
Through my website, which is just my name.com, or not my name, but henrynorton.com, and Instagram. That's probably my biggest
Yeah.
space for pushing my things. But, as I said to you on our call, like, how do you promote holographic coding on Instagram on a post? Like, you cannot, right? You have to experience it because it's so wacky.
Yeah. And I highly recommend everyone get a session in with you because it's amazing. It's so good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Henry. Really fascinating topics and just your journey and how you see things is very different, very empowering compared to a lot of what's out there. So I really appreciate you sharing a lot of your wisdom. And yeah, you're doing such great things for people on a personal level.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's so important to share, right? Like, we can't sell secrets. Like, there are people out there that know the most incredible things, and that's kind of what I've realized with my own mentors is you would not know about these people. Like, they're impossible to find. And so
Mm,
everything they've taught me is like I have a duty to share, because I'm not scared to speak it and I'm not scared to say it, and I'm happy you know to share. And I just think that's really important, and I'd love for more people to share their things, their gifts, because every single person has a story and a gift and something that can help the next person. We get so stuck in comparing ourselves, right, to that thing that's above, but you forget that the people that are looking to you are looking to you for guidance. And so we are all leaders and we are all guides, and we must share our truths. And so thank you for, holding this space.
a pleasure.